At a time when global power equations are continuously shifting with unprecedented speed, India is leveraging geoeconomic disruptions into a strategic advantage. Fueled by resilient growth and a robust demographic dividend, India is actively shaping the narrative of global economic engagement. These points were brought in focus in the recently concluded 11th edition of the Times Network India Economic Conclave held in New Delhi. This year, the theme of IDFC First Bank Presents India Economic Conclave was Navigating Geoeconomics, in line with the current flux in the world order. In this episode, watch Pawan Goenka, Chairman in Space, speaking about how to accelerate the space economy. And then we hear from Partho Banerjee, Senior Executive Officer, Marketing and Sales, Maruti Suzuki India, on the future of e-mobility.
Let me begin by this journey for private sector in the space. And I think Dr. Abdul Kalam had a big role in that sense that he got the private sector into not only defense but into space as well. From that time to now, what has been the journey for many of the private sector companies?
So let me first observe that as I was listening to these youngsters from Amrita, I was going back to my days in college. And in that time, if somebody asked me to face this crowd, I'll probably freeze and not a single word will come out of my mouth. And the confidence that these youngsters have and the content that they had in their communication was absolutely, absolutely amazing. And I think that's the power of youth that India has. That doesn't matter which sector we are in. If we do everything right and if we work with a common goal, we can excel in any sector, whether it's space, agriculture, automobile, or whatever it might be. And that's really a very strong power that we have. Second observation that I have is that this is the second time in a row that IEC is including space in it. So which means that space now is not just about R&D and Chandrayaan and Gaganyaan, it's about economy. And as you pointed out that we are looking at $44 billion economy by 2033. And clearly we are on that path. It will be a steep curve, starting slow, and I will talk about that. And third point for me is that often my audience is all the people in the space sector. Today I think there's nobody here from the space sector, the general audience. So I hope that you go back not just learning something more about space, but thinking about how space can help you in your business. How do you use space technology to further your needs in your business, whatever the business you might be in. And you'll be surprised at how many places, in how many sectors, space can play a very positive role in helping to run business. Now coming to your question about the journey that we have had in the last 4 or 5 years. So space reforms came in India in 2020, at the time of the peak of COVID. And then in space was established about a year later. The space policy was released in 23. And many other things have happened in terms of regulatory reforms to make space become a democratized sector and not something which is purview only of ISRO. And the journey has been absolutely amazing. I don't think that even the Prime Minister at the time that they were thinking about setting up this space reforms would have imagined how much would have happened in the 4 years. And credit completely goes to the people who are active in this sector, the companies, the young companies mostly, who are working on it. Now, what I have observed is that for these youngsters, and again, continuing from what I said in the opening remark, there is no limit of what they can take on and how far they're willing to go. And in a very short period, we have seen the number of startups in space go from about double-digit number to 370 startups in space. And anybody who hears that is surprised that space has, specifically space, they do nothing else but space, has 370 startups today. And they're looking at problems that one would not think that a small company will imagine tackling. Something that even ISRO may think twice before taking it on. So there are several things that have been established already. For example, there are 2 companies that have launch vehicles now, not yet completely proven to take on the real load, but close to it. There are half a dozen companies that can make satellites, full satellite, not just provide systems or components to it. and they've already flown or already put the satellites in orbit. There are multiple companies that are working on applications. So all kinds of ecosystem is evolving very rapidly. And I think, at least from my viewpoint, as I see things, things are moving very well in the right direction.
No, ever since InSpace came in, it's been an inflection point for the private sector to, go, or I should say not private specifically, the startup universe to go after space, because that horizon opened up for them. But if you look from maybe a 10-year period or so, many of the companies, private sector companies, were started off as system makers or small unit makers and we were dependent on ISRO for all the order. Today, we have system integrators, satellite makers, or launch vehicle makers. How has this journey been? Is the capital, which used to be a big issue for initially, is that problem resolved now?
See, capital problem will never be resolved, okay? No matter which sector you are in. It could be a very mature sector, you'll always be needing more capital. So I cannot say capital problem is resolved. But let's look at, sort of break up your question into multiple pieces, okay? If you look at the journey from today to, let's say, next 10 years for any of these companies, what are going to be the key points for success? And when I say success, I don't mean just R&D success. Yeah. I mean commercial success. Okay, yeah. That means anybody who is investing in this company today will get more than their fair share of profit on the investment, is what I would call success, right? And technology becomes an enabler. Okay, so if you look at success for these companies, the biggest thing that has to happen is demand generation. Okay. Capacity has to be done, capability has to be done, skills have to come in, infrastructure has to happen, all of those things, but that will happen. I'm not concerned about those. Yes, it's effort from the government, effort by InSpace, ISRO, effort by the companies, but that will happen. The one big unknown right now is demand. Where will the demand come from? If you're going to be a $44 billion space economy, you need $44 billion worth of demand. And today the demand is $7-8 billion, right? So that's 5x in about 8 years now.
8 years
okay?
time.
Now today the demand is primarily coming from the government. Government is the biggest user of space technology, whether you are in defense sector, whether you are in agriculture sector, whether you are in urban development, whether you are in disaster management, MHA, whichever government department you take, at least 30-40 departments of the government use space technology day in, day out for doing their work, right? So that's the biggest user today. That demand primarily goes to ISRO. Okay? So the first thing that has to happen is to reorient that demand to go to the private sector. Okay? That's beginning to happen. There are at least 40,000 crore worth of demand that has come from the government to the private sector in the last 2-3 years. But we'll need to do a lot more of that. The government itself is using space technology up to a certain point. And I think the potential of how much the government can use the space technology for the betterment of everybody who is sitting here, no matter, again, which sector, which field you are in, is a lot more. Now that sort of multiplier effect will come when the private sector companies start looking at or start developing solutions for the needs of the government. Then the multiplier will happen. ISRO doing it for the government departments was going up to some distance because their primary objective was more of R&D and new frontiers of technology. For private sector, the objective will be start with the new frontiers of technology, but take it to commercial success. And therefore, the multiplier will happen. But that will be only one part of the equation. The second part of the equation has to come from people sitting here. Where will they bring demand into the space technology or space sector and go to the private sector companies and say, I'm running this business, tell me how you can help me and find a solution for my problem using space technology. And I think the potential there is a lot more than what anybody can imagine sitting here today. Okay? And third is, how do we leverage the global markets, where we take our expertise in components and systems, which is very well proven over the last several decades, and become a global supplier. But that is only step one. Step two will be, how do we provide the higher-end solutions? The satellites, the payloads, the data applications. And that's where the third piece of demand will come. So we have to bring all of these things together to take us to that level 8 years from now, and that will be the biggest thing of success. Now, touching upon funding, which of course is the second biggest issue, because all startups require, for any space startup to start making money, will be 3, 4, 5 years affair at least, right? So they have to have funding coming from investors, and the good news is that that's beginning to happen now. Okay? This year, we'll have the highest ever funding in the space of startups. We have crossed $150 million as of 2 days ago. And by this financial year, we'll probably be $200 million, which is more than double of last year. So it's accelerating very fast. Still, $200 million is not a very large number, but a significant number. And there is so much interest that's coming into the space sector from the investors now. And that's one of the key things that any space gets involved in, to educate the investors about the opportunities in the space sector. So that's also beginning to bear fruit.
One of the things which comes into play is when ISRO was there and government wanted services, ISRO would provide those services. It will take years to develop vehicles or satellites there. The profitability or the returns never come into play there, right? When private sector comes into play and when funding is behind them, there will always be discussion of returns on investment. I remember very clearly, a few years back, I was asking L&T that, you spend so much of, capital, shareholder capital on creating defense assets. Where is the returns coming from there? How do you manage returns in private sector? Because these are long gestation projects actually.
So if you, any of you were here yesterday when Mr. Gadkari was talking, he said, "Mufat mein kuch nahi dena hai," right? So today, most of the government departments get solutions from ISRO free of cost, right? Which itself is changing in the government. Government has moved to a demand-driven mode. So if you, as agriculture department, want ISRO to do something, you have to pay for it. ISRO will not put it in their budget, right? Yeah. So that starts putting a price on the value that you are getting from ISRO. The same model will then go to the private sector. Any space offering has to be priced at fair value, right? So whether you want data, or you want application program, or you want a satellite to be launched, or you want to have your own satellite, whatever it might be, and that price positioning has to be fair. Otherwise the industry cannot survive. Nobody is going to invest in a space startup to lose money. You have to have the visibility of price, of revenue, and visibility of profit. Revenue visibility will be first, and profit will be later, like any startup. First you work on top line and then bottom line.
We've had a lot of focus on mobility. Our topic is Navigating Geoeconomics at the India Economic Conclave. And who better than Partho Banerjee himself joining in today from Maruti Suzuki to talk about that. Thank you so much for your time.
I think first of all, I'd like to thank the Times Network Group for coming up with this conclave. And Aisha, you rightly mentioned, I know before me there were some speakers. My good friends, Tarun, would have spoken about the Indian mobility. So, interesting.
And Mr. Gadkari yesterday.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I think being the market leader, everybody is thinking that why Maruti is not coming with the electric vehicle. So, wherever I go in the media, any place, everybody asks me, sir, why you people are not coming? So, in fact...
Why you people are not coming?
Okay, I was expecting that. In fact, I ask a simple question to all my media friends. How do you define coming? Is giving a total solution more important or giving a part of it is more important?
Obviously, if it's Maruti, we expect the complete solution, don't we all?
Actually, not from others.
I didn't say anything.
Just to give you a perspective for bringing the audience to the same platform, Today, if we talk about the EV, we being the market leader, we feel it is very important for us to have a play in all form factors and also to have a play across all the segments and also the technologies, be it the EV, be it the hybrids, be it the ICE, be it the CNG. Because you cannot be a market leader if you are not offering all the type of products and you are not catering to all the segments. Now coming to EV, today there are more than some 17 to 18 models in the segment. I'm the one which are doing some numbers. But the car penetration of EV on the total industry is just 4%. 4%. So it doesn't make too much of a difference in a country like ours where we are selling close to every month industry is doing close to 4 lakh sales. Just 4% is around 16, 17,000. So what is the reason why people are not adapting to the EV? That's a very fundamental question. So we are lucky. Many of our friends in the industries, they first launched it. From there, we had some learnings. And from the customers, we came to know that there are certain concerns in their mind. Till the time we are not able to address that, only we will get the early adapters, but we will not get the mass movement for the electric vehicle.
So I'm very curious. What is this amazing plan that you're working on? What do consumers want from EVs?
Yeah, generally if any new model comes, Aisha, there are initially some early adapters जो अपने घर के सामने गाड़ी खड़ी करेंगे कि भाई ये नई गाड़ी लेके आए हैं, but they are not brand loyalist. They will again move on to another brand. But ultimately, a OEM looks for the loyalist who will stay with the brand and they will be promoting it. So fundamentally, if we need to take into account this set of customers, you need to work on those. And when we did a research that what are the so-called the inhibitions the customers are having to move to an EV, fundamentally 4 things came out. First was the range of the vehicle. Now what has happened in the past, the products which has been offered to the Indian customers, what was the range claimed vis-a-vis actually what the range they got, there was a huge gap. So now the customers are little concerned if the OEMs are claiming some range, actually in reality how much I will get. Second thing was, they were not buying this car as the primary car, not the first car in their house. The reason was very simple. If in India the car penetration is 34 per thousand, the customer who is buying the first car in his family, he is not buying it for a purpose that if I have to go out of the city, I will be using another car. Within the city, if I am traveling, I will be using the EV. He wants a car. If he wants to go to Chandigarh, Jaipur, it should do. At the same time, for 360 days when I'm in the town in Delhi, I will be able to use that vehicle. Now, if you don't have a good public charging system, he will not be able to use it if he's going out of the city. Third important point is this, how good the product is. At the end of the day, you need to give a good after-sales service. Very important. Technology, everything is fine, but you need an after-sales service network. And fourth thing is, which is very important, कि भाई 5 साल बाद मुझे गाड़ी बदल के दूसरी गाड़ी लेनी है, what is the resale value I will get? Now, if you talk about today the conventional ICE vehicles, after 5 years, you get at least 50% as the salvage price. So what is the thing I can expect after 5 years? Because EV generally people know is a battery. And if the battery after 5 years, life is going down, then what is the price I will get? So till the time whosoever is able to take care of all these 4 concerns, then only the customer will start thinking that I can now shift to an electric vehicle. So Aisha, Maruti is trying to work on all these 4 concerns, how we can address it, and then we want to launch our product.
Understood. But that gives me a lot of questions to ask about Maruti's plan. Is it in the very near term, more about infrastructure, or is it about what you said, make that car which will make people loyal for life?
We believe one thing. You need to design horses for the courses. So at the end of the day, when we are designing a product, we keep in mind, and we are in this market for last 40 years. So थोड़ी बहुत तो हम लोगों को कस्टमर के साथ में कनेक्ट बनाया है हम लोगों ने, थोड़ी समझ तो आई है. उस समझ को लेते हुए we try to see what is the best thing which will fit in for the customers, what features to be provided. That makes a difference, because you can't just copy and paste a product. See, what was the playbook in the Norway for the electric vehicles? Electric vehicle in Norway penetration is almost close to almost 90-95%. You cannot just have the copy and paste of the Norway playbook to the Indian playbook. It won't work. You need to adapt it to the local conditions. Get your product, made it suitable to the Indian consumers, and then you offer it. It makes a difference. वही थोड़ी बहुत मारुति ने सीख लिया है.
Do you have a timeline in your mind as to when will we see an EV from the Maruti stable?
Aisha, I'm a bit surprised that you are not following Maruti. This year, Bharat Mobility Show, we showcased our product, the e-Vitara.
Yes.
And just to share with you, the production is already happening from our Gujarat plant. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, flagged it off. The vehicles are already running now on the UK roads. I have been to London and I saw the response there. Amazing response. More than 10,000 vehicles have been exported. In the next month, in Japan, this e-Vitara is going to run on the roads. The booking has started. And we have a plan to export it to 100 countries. So in fact, for the domestic market, we are going to start the test drive campaigns very soon from the beginning of the new calendar year, and then we are going to start the bookings.
Brilliant. So also wanted to ask about whether now with the e-Vitara launch, is that going to be the focus, or would it be hybrids, or would the dominant share from Maruti stable continue to be ICE engines?
I will give a classic example. If a surgeon is there, he needs a surgeon knife to do a surgery. Why you want to offer him a butcher's knife? So the point is this, based on the needs and based on the customer requirement, we will offer hybrid, EV, ICE, CNG, all the type of products. And let the customer decide. Why I need to push one technology more than the other? Is it not better giving option to the customer to decide?
But you know, the customer today is so much more aware, and who would know this better than you? You've been on the Indian roads for the last 4 decades now. The consumer, and ever since COVID, has evolved so much. I mean, who would have thought that at least in the metros, SUVs will be more found on roads and be more sold than perhaps passenger vehicles traditionally as we knew them? What is that one thing that you're observing about the Indian consumer today?
See, I know today everyone is talking about the SUV, and we are also having a big play in the SUV. We have recently launched the Victoris, and it's rocking. But maybe the Desire, which we launched last year, is a sedan. Maybe we're going to be the #1 model this year across the industry. So the point which I'm trying to make is this: each segment will have a role to play.
Thank you so much for your time today, Partho.
Thank
Lovely
you.
speaking with
Thank
you.
you. Aisha.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you.